Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Fierce, Fabulous Fridays. I'm Deborah Corn, the Executive Director of Girls Who Print, and today we are going to be speaking about From the Residence to the Workplace. We'll get to that in one moment. I wanted to remind everybody that we have upcoming events in July and August still. Coming up next is Charlotte Tuck-Mantle. She's going to share her journey from entry level to executive suite. She rose to become the chief operating officer of eProductivity Software, and that was a division of EFI until they broke out. So she has a long and storied career, and she's going to be doing a 2-session series. It is free for members. If you're not a member, it's $20 donation per session, but it's only $40 to join Girls Who Print. So why not just pay the 40 and then you can come to all of our events all year long at no additional cost. The Friday after, we have Straightening Crowns, hosted by Vice President and Program Director for Girls Who Print, Kelly Malazzi. And her guests will be Alicia Kazinskis, Michelle Donaga, and Anna Frias. So that is open to everybody, free of charge. So please join us. And then we have the final session of Sarah O'Hannison's Productivity Pitfalls series. This first session is already posted on the site. The second session, the replay, I will post on the site. And when I say site, I mean the members site, because this was a members only activity. So if you want to catch the replays, please join Girls Who Print, and that's where we store all the replays for our member events. If you are not involved and not empowered yet, please scan this QR code and see everything that we have going on at Girls Who Print. So the residence is let's say, the house that we are setting our conversation today. The Residence is a Netflix murder mystery set inside the White House, where a state dinner turns deadly and the investigation reveals more than just a crime. Led by an unconventional female detective, the story peels back the curtain on power plays, unspoken hierarchies, and the invisible labor that keeps everything running, especially the work done by women. Inspired by the wit, wisdom, and bold truth of Cordelia Cupp, this session is about taking a closer look about how we show up in our own spaces. Just like the characters in The Residence, the women of print often operate behind the scenes, navigating complex dynamics, managing expectations, and proving their value in systems not built for them. So this series gives us a lens to reflect on our own experiences and a reason to talk about how we keep showing up, standing strong, and changing the story to our story. So what I've done is I've pulled out some quotes from the show to open up to have a discussion about after. So when we first meet Cordelia Cupp, who I guess I should have mentioned who she's played by, but I do not remember the woman's full name. But there she is, right there, and she's fantastic. She was in Orange is the New Black, so when we first meet her, she comes into the White House, and she's being pretty snippy to everybody. She's calling all the guys dudes, and she's like, "There's a lot of dudes in here," and her counterpart, the FBI agent, Agent Park, who's right there in the image, he says, it doesn't have to be this way between us. And she's like, "Well, how do you want it to be?" And he's like, "More respectful." And she's like, "What do you want me to respect you for? I don't know you." And he's like, "Well, I don't know you either, but I respect you." And she's like, "Well, that's different." And he's like, "Why?" And she says, "Because I'm Cordelia Cupp." So she walked into that White House with the confidence of knowing who she was, no matter how anyone else was going to define her or treat her. She knew that she was the world's greatest detective, and she did not have to prove herself to anybody. And quite frankly, she didn't care about what anybody thought about her. So you could earn respect while you are in the room, and but respect can also precede your entrance. And we did the last Fierce Fabulous Friday was about personal branding, and that all plays a part in this. Cordelia was an avid bird watcher, and birds had a big theme during the show, but so did her binoculars. She always had them with her, and she was always looking at things with them on. And one of the things she said to her nephew, who she took bird watching with her, is don't pick up your binoculars until you know what you are looking at. And I have translated that to be focus and precision. I am an avid astronomy fan, which is probably self-evident, because of the Printiverse and all my star and galaxy, references. But in astronomy, you can't just take a telescope and point it up at the sky. There's no depth of field. All the stars look alike. You need a guide point, something that you can focus on so that you can find what you're even looking at. And it's the same thing if we translate this into, what the binoculars. So like if you have problems, what you look for the root of the problem with the binoculars, not how it manifests, which is clear and in your face. And the binoculars can also help with the next move, looking past where you are now, looking towards where you want to go to. And once you understand that, using the binoculars to see your path clearly with focus and precision. The This is the White House assistant usher, and she was very adamant at one point that we're not here to push back, we're here to execute. And that was in reference to the chef who was having a hard time getting her the menu approved, what she wanted to do, not what anybody else wanted to do. So I think of this as serve the mission. And I serve the mission came from a speaker that I saw many years ago at one of the Canon Think events. And he was one of the numerous people who attend events as motivational speakers who climbed Mount Everest. If you go to a lot of printing events, it's more than you think. There are people that climb Mount Everest. I mean, but incredible people. Some did it blind, some did it carrying their friend up. In this particular case, the gentleman who was speaking was very, very eager to climb Mount Everest. And he was only caring about himself. And that made him a danger to the climbing team. They couldn't trust him. So he had to earn his spot on the team. And for many years, all he did was put 1 ounce of granola into little baggies so that the climbers would have them, pre-rationed out as they were climbing up the mountain. And it wasn't until he understood that that was just as important as being one of the people climbing the mountain to support the mission that he was allowed to go on the mission to climb Mount Everest, because it wasn't his mission anymore. It was the mission. So you want to serve the mission, whatever that mission is, until you are chosen to be on that mission and you have earned your right to help plan the mission. Sometimes little things turn into big things. What are you willing to do? What can you do with what you have? with what you have been given and with what you have earned. There's a million stories you hear from people who had a conversation with somebody randomly at an event and it turned into a 20-year long relationship. And I mean, I've been at events where I just turn to talk to somebody and I find out that it's, someone I've been looking for a very long time to help explain something to the printerverse or teach me something, or maybe perhaps I could help them open a door, or they could help me open a door. But we get so bogged down sometimes over the quantity quality debate, that I think it's really important sometimes not to just dismiss little things. Somebody's order for just a small amount of print, the way, depending upon how you interact with them that first time, how comfortable they feel, how if they feel like they can ask questions and they're not judged. If you deliver on everything you say that you could deliver, you never know. They could be sitting on a $90 million print job, or they could move somewhere that has a budget even bigger than that. So don't dismiss the little things. Everything matters if it's related to you, your career, and your business to move forward. So again, Cordelia had interactions with the FBI agent who was assigned to follow her around to make sure that nothing crazy was going on. And Cordelia had made an error in judgment, and she said, "Damn it, I hate making mistakes." And the FBI agent said, "Luckily, you do not make a lot of them." And she turned with a laser stare and said, "It's not luck." Now, I chose this one especially because this is something Kelly Malazzi says all the time. And I went to the source of inspiration and remembered that Oprah Winfrey actually had given the best definition of luck I had ever heard. So I'm going to share it now. Luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. So not you don't stop learning. You don't stop your curiosity just because you're in one position and not another position. You don't know where you're going to end up. So you prepare yourself for everything. And it's actually one of the things that I'm most proud of Girls Who Print, as we've become the nonprofit and opened up this membership platform, is the upskilling and continuing education that we are going to offer so that everybody is prepared to meet the moment when that job comes along or that client comes along and you are well versed or versed enough in what they do or what they need that you can achieve greatness from it. This is Marvella, the executive chef. She was quite a character in this show. And as I mentioned before, she wanted to create some out of the box menu with, like you see those chefologists that, they mix things and smoke comes out of it. And she wanted to do all of this crazy stuff. And all they basically wanted her to do was make, chicken, beef, or fish, anything you might think of going to at some sort of dinner or a wedding or something like that. I'm not saying it's bad food, but I'm saying you pretty much know what it's going to be. And she was just not having any of it. And what she ended up saying was that, not even saying, screaming, "I'm trying to do something great and you keep getting in my way." And what I heard from that is, this is the way we do things around here. So she did not, by the way, follow the instructions of, chicken, beef, or fish, but it also didn't work out for her exactly. I'm not really a spoiler alert person. So if you've watched the show, and if you haven't, it's still worth watching. So go see what happened to Marvella. But at the end of the day, she did stand her ground because she kind of did a combo thing. But again, it still didn't exactly work out for her. So when Cordelia finally solves the murder. She's asked when she knew, and she was very puzzled by this question. And she said, I knew when I knew. At some point, you go from not knowing something to knowing it, and not only knowing it, but seeing it. And what I took away from this is that it's a journey, and learning is a process, and that process is different for everyone. When I first started on social media is when social media first started, and I will never forget that it took me 3 meetings to understand what a hashtag was. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like that number sign on the phone now has some meaning on a in a social media platform. It was very difficult, but once I understood it, once I saw it, and once I realized that it was a way to bring the things that I was talking about out into a larger audience, because those hashtags were keywords and search terms and things of that nature, then I was able to see it and know it and use it to my advantage to create one of the largest online communities in printing. That's not just Girls of Print, that's my print media center channels as well. And of course, Sandy Hubbard and I are responsible for putting more than 2 billion with a B impressions for print out through print chat or hashtag print chat. But this is all came from, at some point you go from not knowing to knowing, and then once you know it and you see it, what are you going to do about that? Cordelia, as I mentioned, was, found her time to look, to do her bird watching. And to her, it's always just about the birds. Birds have the ability to focus. They literally filter out things that are not food. That is all that they focus on with their little birdie eyes. So Cordelia uses birds, in my opinion, as a metaphor for clarity and attention to detail, spotting what matters and ignoring the distractions, and following her path on her journey the whole way until at the end of the day, she's the best detective in the world and she gets her man or woman. With that said, I now have a little discussion that we can all have. If you want to turn on your cameras and mics, that would be awesome. And so, if you remember, the first slide was that Cordelia was saying that she doesn't have to respect anybody in the room. And she assumed everybody would respect her because she was the world's greatest detective. So, because of that, Cordelia demands respect not because of a title, but because who she is. So, in your role, when have you had to assert your worth in a space where it wasn't automatically granted, and how did you handle it?
Well, I can think of a situation back when I was a video producer. I had a team of guys who were my team, and I never asked them to do this, but if someone came up to them and assumed they were the boss at a shoot, they would just very politely point to me. I can only think of one time when it became an issue where somebody's like, well, I'm not going to deal with her or whatever. But just that nice, quiet authority so that the people around you, if there's any confusion or they're not like making a big thing out of it, but it's just like she's the boss.
Always time bound for some reason. And I don't, so, to me, even to this day, I say, I've been in this business for 31 years. Now, to me, that feels like automatic credibility, even though it, I mean, it is to some degree. Like I'm solid in the knowledge. I'm also very willing to admit what I don't know. But yeah, it always felt like, even early in my sales career, once I hit a few years, I'd be like, well, I've been doing this for 4 years, like talking about time, it's almost like the investment of the time and how long I was doing it, I felt gave me credibility. But I don't know if anybody else resonates with that or if that makes
Yeah.
sense at all.
I feel like I resonate with that, Kelly, because I started my journey like directly out of college working at Fujifilm. And I was the expert on the press. And so I'm trying to tell men that are in their 50s and have these longstanding careers that I know more than them about this press. And they're not leaning on me to give them the proper information, assuming that I'm just saying stuff because I want to be lazy and I don't want to do it that way. No, there's a reason we don't do it that way.
Yeah.
I tend to hope that mentioning that, I've been doing this for 20 years has some kind of influence on people, especially in a job search. But sometimes I still get the block of, oh, you've been doing this for 20 years and you're a girl, you must be in sales. And now I'm in sales.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah.
I would have to say that, I mean, even now after 15 years and I mean, I still walk into trade shows and I'm not a trade pub. I'm not a media person that they know and that nobody, there's plenty of people that don't want anything to do with me that I have to, sometimes somebody else will come around and say, "No, you should probably talk to her." But I deal with it all the time. There's even running the world's largest LinkedIn print group and having a pretty big presence in the printing industry. There are It's very humbling sometimes. In certain places I could just walk in there and I can, talk to anybody I want and like Cordelia, my reputation precedes me. However that is perceived by the other people. Some want to talk to me, some run away, it just depends.
Just
But
the ones that are scared of loud outspoken women.
well, I'm an acquired taste, as I always say. So there is dealing with that and how you deal with it. And I will say that sometimes I change my personality to welcome Deborah. Oh sure, let me tell you all about myself. And other times I'm just like, I don't have time to audition for these people anymore. It's like, if you want to work with me, then I appreciate that. I really do. But you're making me work too hard to convince you to work with me. If you want to work with me, there's plenty. Literally, I occupy like the first 19 pages of Google. Go,
I think one of
go
the things
investigate.
about being in sales that you learn is you think, oh, the guys have respect as table stakes, like people just grant it because they're a guy. But you realize when you do sales that everybody has to, whether you do it as a shortcut, you learn what things make people uncross their arms, and everybody has to do it. So after a while, you just go, all right, I've had to do this so many times that I know these three things, if worked into the conversation successfully, will unlock that first layer of respect or acceptance so that you can keep moving. And like Kelly says, one of the biggest ones is how long you've been in the business and who else validates you. So even though name dropping is always kind of icky, I mean, I get a lot of love in the industry because I know Deborah. So it's like I'm not going to not use that opportunity to say, hey, I'm one of the original girls who print, and I've been working with Deborah on the newsletter for 14 years.
2011.
Yeah.
No
So,
way.
it's
Sandy
but
and I are OGs.
yeah, but a
Why did
lot
it
of
take
times,
me so long to find you guys?
I know. But getting into the conference room with the owner and his or her arms are crossed and their team is like, all right, prove it to us. And I'm sure Lenny has gone through that situation where you're like, all right, I have to prove that part before I can even go on to the selling part.
Mhm.
Kels?
Well, yeah, we have another issue in this industry, though, which is the opposite of that, right? All of us, many of us on this call are decades in. And there are people coming into our industry from other places whose ideas are being dismissed because they don't know print,
Oh, yeah.
right? This is more commonly seen in HR and marketing and some of these roles. But I just had a conversation with a woman this week who was like, I can't make anything. And she's a very high level person, but she's like, no one will listen to me. I can't, they don't listen to my ideas. And what they constantly say to me is, you don't know print. So it's like, you can't win either way. You're either in it forever or you can't get traction because you haven't been able to put in the time, even though she's 20 years into her career, right? But she's only been in print for 3. So that's a whole, I think
Unless
that
you're
might be a
in
whole other
production,
topic. What's that?
unless you're in production, not knowing print, I mean, there's soft skills that you can use everywhere. You just know how,
Exactly.
you have to know how to work with people.
Right. So
Exactly.
true.
I worked with a lady who did not know print in my office. She understood the warehousing and a lot of the things that we did for drop shipments and those kind of things, but I found her just everyday common sense so applicable. I would have her look at things because everything we do, I work in more now. I've been in commercial print forever, but I work more on the 3-dimensional side, the displays, retail displays going into Walmart, those kind of places. We're working on one that's a battery display. It holds the most amount of weight of any display in Walmart.
Mm.
It's pretty reinforced. So, but I always enjoyed having her opinion because she would look at it from a consumer side or, just common sense, where I'm always technical on the technical side. And so when you're saying, Kelly, that this lady's not getting the respect, her fresh views are something they should be happy to have. And so I started in the industry in the mid 80s, and you know they they would ask you to do things like, hey, can you go down to the plant and find out where things are? It was a small company, and the people that I would talk to down on the floor would definitely give me the wrong information. It's just like hazing at
Oh my
first.
gosh.
And so you struggle through those years, and then when you have earned your stripes, you don't get the respect for them automatically.
Well,
It's like, hey, read my LinkedIn before you talk to me.
yeah. That's actually a perfect segue to the next discussion topic that I wanted to bring up, which is about respect. Because, when Cordelia was like, "Of course you respect me. I'm Cordelia Cupp. Why wouldn't you?" So, what does respect in the workplace look like to you? Have you seen it withheld from women? And if you have, or in general, how do we shift those dynamics, especially when you may be one of the only couple of women in you where you work?
I've definitely seen it like in at a previous employer. I was a press operator, and my coworker and I, both women, we were working on 2 separate presses, and she was having an issue, struggling to get registration. And so I go over there. I know she's already checked all these boxes, but I'm trying to be a good support and was like, let's troubleshoot it. Let's start from the bottom. Okay, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. Yeah, you're right. We need to call a technician. So the technician comes in, ends up being a guy I used to work with at a previous spot. So he's telling me like, yeah, she just doesn't know what she's doing. It's gonna run just fine. And I looked at him and I said, man, I've been working with her for a couple of years now. I'm like, just listen to her. We didn't call you in because we don't know what we're doing. We're calling you in because we can't take a screwdriver to the press. So just listen to her and just see what happens. 5 minutes later, the issue appeared, and he was like, oh, all you had to do was listen. That's it.
That's a great point. Kels?
Yeah, just for fun, I just put a little prompt into one of the AI engines, and it really is about structure. When we were talking about workplace respect, structure, behaviors, policies, all to emphasize dignity and empowerment. So yes, have we, probably every single one of us, been in a situation where we were not being treated with dignity, right? There was no framework to maintain our dignity, certainly. So, I mean, to me, this is such a nice segue into what you talked about earlier with this as being about preparation. We talk about this all the time, right? We know these things are going to happen. We know that things are going to get said, people are going to act a certain way, and yet we're somehow still surprised by it, such that we don't know what to say or do in those moments. And it's like, we've seen this movie before, people. We've been here a lot of times, right? So I just feel like even as a consultant, so someone who's not institutionally working in a company, is to say, like, I know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to do it kindly, and I seek to preserve everyone's dignity when I do it. Nobody's out here trying to shame anybody or cancel anybody or anything like that, right? But we do want to help people understand that which they may not. They may not even know that some of these ways that they are being disrespectful or not preserving our dignity, it may not be intentional. I want to be expansive and kind about that, especially in a world of being, working with everybody from the age 18 to 80, who all have, different lived experiences. So I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Well, and sometimes it is intentional. And again, I think your point that knowing what you're going to say, and that why be surprised by it? Because there are some people who just like to poke you, and if they sense that that's an area that will get your goat, then they'll do it. And so I worked with, he wasn't my boss, but he was in the building and other people's bosses, and I felt like um, after a while, I just had some things that I would say and not engage with him because I knew it was just a big fun game to him. But also, like as a woman, I felt like I had a responsibility to his employees to role model how you could respond and not lose your job. Yeah, I mean, my job wasn't in danger, but I wanted them to know that you can say something without being disrespectful, but also not just let him go around being a jerk to everybody. And
Yeah.
kind of, I wish I could remember. There was a book that came out at that time that I ended up reading, which was, like have 5 phrases in your pocket ready to go for certain situations, because why not?
Yeah. I mean, people say that respect is earned and not given, but I don't really agree with that because I give everybody respect, everybody, until they do something to mess it up. And then we've got a problem because even if they're disrespectful to me, I will be like, okay, let's try to salvage this because I will end up the screaming lunatic in the room, right? So I don't want to be perceived that way. So eventually, I think the best examples I can think of are press checks. And I don't know if anyone's ever gone on a press check, but if you have, and Mary, I'm sure you would have been lovely to be on a press check with. But back in the day, my God, if you said, I want to add a little more blue into that sky, it was like I needed a lawyer, two union representatives, the owner. I mean, it was in the fights that would go on to recalibrate the colors a little different. And it was not fun. There was some knockout, drag out things. Now listen, I'm the customer. I'm always going to get what I want. And yes, there were a few times that I had to say, okay, you were right. That was too far. Pull it back. And then I'd leave the press room and I would just leave them alone for the rest of the thing. Send them a thing of bagels or something and just say thank you. But when I was right, I wouldn't leave the press room until I got the press guy to agree that it looked better. I was like, just tell me it looks better and my work here is done. And he's like, and they were always like, fine, it looked better. And in some of the cases, they actually said to me, thank you. Now we've actually learned something. And I will tell you, in those instances when I came back, if I wanted to take the yellow down 2 and put the cyan up 3, they were like, no problem. Whatever you want to do, we're here for you. But it wasn't given to me. I had to earn it from them. I do not know if they treated men buyers differently because I never went on a press. I was always by myself on a press check. So that would be interesting to ask some of the guys. Anything else on respect before we move on to the next thing? No? Okay.
Well,
Oh, go ahead,
I-
please.
for me, I feel like that the very first sign anyone can give for respect in a business setting is active listening. And I think that it's easy to tell when someone just could care less if you're there or not, if they pretend to listen and move on very quickly and don't acknowledge and don't like consider what you're saying. And
Yeah.
if I run into a situation with that person, I point it out. And if it still happens, then I'm done.
What Kelly said about, people not really realizing that they're being discriminated, just showing lack of respect because that's their assumption. And I think this assumptions is where we have to get the changes made that men or people in general see women successfully working in these types of industries and they don't dismiss them automatically. And I think success is what successful women showing what they can do and promoting themselves is what would help that. And then when you're talking about the press check, I've been like customer service where I've escorted men to the press and those kind of things. And they do often have, absolutely more um, rapport and conversation. So I kind of learned a long time ago to make sure and greet the lead pressman, show him the respect that I'm expecting, and then ask him his concerns first. And usually they end up being your concerns as well. And it becomes very partnership. So that's the best thing I could share on that.
That's awesome.
That's actually great advice. I would also say, why the hell do women have to do these extra things? Why can't I'm a buyer from Ogilvy and Mather. Is there anything else I need to do besides walk in that room to get anything that I want from anybody? I mean, why am I
Exactly.
fighting with the press people? They should just be like, yes, ma'am, can I have another? Yes, ma'am, can I have another? And that is it. I mean, that is their job. Unless, to your most excellent point, listen, if you want to add this extra pump of black, I'm going to do it. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to mess up all the rest of the images in the catalog. So if you want to see it, we're just going to be here for another 3 hours, and then that comes to respecting them on their tools, on their machine, and saying, okay, if you think you know what I want, we've had this discussion. If you believe now, then you have to have the respect for the other person that that's their area. I'm not operating the press. So there's a give and take there about respect also, I think. So Cordelia also said that sometimes little things turn into big things. What is one overlooked action or moment in your work that turned out to be pivotal? And how can we recognize those moments in ourselves and others, or better recognize it? I'll start very quickly and just say that I didn't know that the little thing I did, which is open up a LinkedIn group so I could look for a job and bring people to me instead of me looking for them, I would bring them to me, would turn into a 16-year career. So that is one of those little things that turned into a big thing. However, I would say that at the moment I had no idea what was going on, but what I do give myself the credit for is that once I realized that something was going on and I was in the middle of it, but I couldn't define it. I didn't know if it would what it would lead to, but I knew that something was happening and I had the fortitude to stick with it and see what would happen. And that is the thing that the little thing that turned into the printerverse, quite frankly. And so did the printerverse actually came from a little thing. I didn't want to tell people I had moved to Florida from New York. So when people asked me where I lived, I was just one time I was like, the printerverse, what do you care? And then I was like, oh, wait a second.
That's good.
That's a good one. And plus I love astronomy. So I went with Print Long and Prosper. And literally the rest is history, but it was a little thing that turned into a big thing. Kind of accidental, but I was smart enough and secure enough to know that I could do something with it and take it further.
I wrote down when you were speaking about that, I wrote ideas and circled it because that to me is a really good example of a small, an idea is a small thing. Sometimes we don't even let the ideas out of our brains, right? But then, sometimes, and that might even be in the form of a question, right? And it really, that those are the things that can ignite and grow into large things. For example, my work bestie Bill Farquharson about 20 years ago saying to me, "Why aren't you blogging?" And Success in Print was born because that's what I named the blog after I was like, "What's that?" Right? Like, what? So it is like, yes, sometimes we have to dismiss 99% of the ideas that come into our heads, but if it sticks with you and it's like gnawing at you, that might be the indication that it's time to do something, act, go somewhere, call someone, you know, make that connection or something because it was just a question, right? And and here I am this many years later where I am. So yeah.
So one of the small things I just realized it this week. I was at a TLMI LLT event, where it was my first event I got to go to. I was on the other side last year, but I went and I was kind of nervous because I'm going to meet all these industry people and I want to do a good job for my company. I want to do a good job for me. And I very quickly realized I didn't have to come in and make like this big impression. I just had to show up. And if I just showed up and I just involved myself a little bit, that broke through like a lot of my nervousness, but it made it so much easier to connect with people because I wouldn't have talked to the 20 different people I talked to this week if I hadn't just shown up.
It's awesome.
Amazing. Anyone else?
One of the ones that I wrote about when we were interviewed for our Girls Who Print thing in March for the month
Print
was
History Month.
that I always try to get promoted as quickly as possible. And I started doing that when one of my first jobs out of college. I just felt like I could get things accomplished more quickly if I could, have the title that went with the job that would open doors throughout the organization. People didn't know me, at least I had this title. And so I rolled that over to, I did my first company turnaround when I was 22. I turned a company around and I thought, and the guy had a pretty quick timeline. He was either going to go out of business or whatever. And that was one more thing I put in that category of like, why wait? Let's just prove myself quickly. And it's a little thing, but it's kind of almost like a operating tool, which is, all right, if I come into this situation, what's the quickest way I can get, the respect or the authority or the next thing or make the change. So yeah.
Sandy, it's funny that you mentioned that because we have a number of people joined the membership platform from a printing company in Texas. And in one of our forums, I asked a question about career trajectory. And this person who replied to that said, in really 3 short years, she got promoted 4 times. And that's the kind of thing but I think that what I hear from you in that is it's almost like the vision or the audacity to imagine that it was possible, right? Or the strategic brain to know that that was necessary, right? Which I think Charlotte's going to probably talk about in our event a lot when it comes up at the end of the month. But yeah, the notion of like movement, right? And we know that this is true of younger people. They want to, what's next? What's next? Where can I go? What can I be? So we all have a role to play in helping people understand what's possible. And just setting that as like an intention or a goal, I think is fantastic.
That's a good way to frame it. I like that word intention. That's really good.
Excellent. So she's as the assistant usher said, we're not here to push back, we're here to execute. So what happens when execution is expected, but your voice or leadership isn't? And is there a way to push back strategically while still getting the work done? This one's a little
To
tricky.
me, this is squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Repeating it over and over, like the idea that you, whatever it is that you want to happen or what you're asking for. I mean, maybe I need to hear the statement again though, because it just, to me, it feels like you get knocked down once. It's like, I keep going. I'm gonna keep persevering, especially when I'm very sturdy about what I know, what I know or what I think. It's just to kind of have to push through it. Or what I've been doing lately is I don't even respond. I'm just like, you say something, I don't agree with you, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Okay. So when we think, so the statement, just to repeat it, is what happens when execution is expected of you, but your voice or leadership isn't, and how can you push back strategically while getting the work done? So I will answer my own question, and maybe that will help, uh, where I'm coming from on this. So just like the just like the mountain climber who wasn't allowed to climb the mountain until the mission was about the team and not about them, there are certain times the only time to push back on the mission, to have your voice or leadership should not be listened to. If you're serving the mission, you should just be serving the mission. And everybody, as long as you're serving the mission, everybody should be, your leadership and your voice should be respected in that. What you don't want to do is derail the mission with your, but I don't understand why we're doing that, and we could do it so much a better way, and why are we using that paper? It's already been decided. Everybody, we don't want to hear from anybody now. We just want to get it done, right? So there's the time not to chime in because it's not the right moment. Then there is the other situation where the mission could have been set, but something has happened since then. Perhaps the printer closed, or their machine went down, and or they got a new one. So there's nothing there, or you couldn't get the paper you wanted, or whatever else it is, or but nobody else on the team knows of a way to save a week. Of just shipping it a different way or making it a different size. So in that case is when you want to be heard, um, in the mission. But how you do it is, in my opinion, you need to go to the person who set the mission. No, 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 up the chain of it. You have to go right to that person, because you can't have grumblings of, well, she told me to do this and you're telling me to do this. Like, you don't say a word to anybody. You walk yourself to whomever set that mission. In advertising agencies, it was mostly the account director, so you walked right over there, or the creative director, and you said, listen, we're I'm we're going to run into a problem in about 2 weeks unless we address it right now. So here's the situation. Let's make a plan. And then you tell everybody what the new plan is. And then we all serve the mission together. So in the other situation where it's just shut up, we don't want to hear from you, keep going, then what I've done in the past is, after the project was over, I would bring something to the creative's office or the account director's office and be like, look, that last project was exactly what everybody wanted, but if another one like this comes up, there's really a good reason to involve me or someone from the production department in this planning of the mission. Or here's some samples of things we could have done if you only involved production earlier, and we were able to involve our printers earlier and even call them in to help us plan the mission. So that still keeps you in good standing. You still serve the mission, because you do never want to be the person that's messing up the mission when everybody's on it, ever. You suck it up until it's over and you deal with it. Again, unless you can avert a crisis, then you're still serving the mission, but you cannot change the mission. Comments?
I think that's really good. Just I got to jump off in a second here. I've got a top of the hour, but I was going to say, and you confirmed it with your story. One is, don't be the person that lets everybody down. So always be reliable, always be shooting for excellence. So no one ever has to worry about that for you. Always be present when the big decisions are being made, whether you're included in the conversation or not, because a lot of times they'll just turn and go, Sandy, what do you think? And it's like, well, I'm glad I was in the room. And when you are doing those post-ops, if you have the power to ask for those to happen, that's what part of my Scrum training is, that you do those post-ops so that you can learn and be better next time. And again, being in the room for those is really powerful. So I thought your example was great.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes the mission is so broad, right? Sales, right? It's like, go get sales, but then there's institutionally no necessary strategy or process behind that. So in that regard, it's not necessarily that you don't have a voice, but to me, it was always like, well, I'm just going to go do it, So that was just another thought. So I'm sorry. I think somebody else was trying to say
Mary,
something.
you were going to say
Sorry,
something.
Mary.
So you're totally fine. But my comment is sometimes I've been put in a position where it's just like, I don't know why we're doing this because we're going to have the same result as last time. But that's a thought I keep to myself. What I do say is yes, and yes, we'll do it. And here are my concerns. And this is what we're going to get. So as we all know, predominantly male field. I have found in my couple of years at this particular company, when I can come with facts, and I can come with a reason why it's going to usurp up something else I think is very important. When I bring those things into the conversation, I tend to be heard a lot more. So with a yes and of, yeah, we'll do that. And it's going to create a backlog for these other things. I need you to tell me what the priority is. That tends to help a lot. At least that's just how I found my way to navigate here.
Yeah, you're proactively disrupting, but it's in everybody else's best interest, not your own. Like the guy who wanted to climb the mountain, he wanted to climb it for his glory. He didn't care about the team. And they were like, you cannot go, you're not part of this team. You're not doing anything to make it that you're part of this team. So they're like, shovel the granola until you get it in your head that we all work together. And the granola person is just as important as the first person leading everybody up the mountain. So I thought that was a great example.
If I were to say anything to the people that are watching this is, on the replay, the stuff about focus and precision, I thought was incredibly important. And just as an aside, Deborah, we haven't talked about this, but as I was doing research about the show, one of the questions that they did ask was, does Cordelia Cupp, is she autistic? Because she's so direct and so focused. I thought that was just a really interesting point. I want to look into it a little bit more, but I mean, to me, she's one of the most iconic television characters I've ever seen. I think there is so much about being focused and having such a reputation and being so confident and prepared.
Yeah.
That and I'm not yet done with the show, so I can't wait.
Yeah.
You gracefully did not do any spoilers, so thank you so much for that. It was really fantastic.
I've seen the whole show. I watched it and I binged it. And I think that her good example of walking into a room and being able to own the room and feel present and in the lead without making sure everybody knows is a good example. Like, yeah, I'm here, I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it, and I'm good at it, and I'm the best, but I don't need to shout it from the rooftops, and I don't need everyone that's here to know, because some people's shoes are going to be stepped on by me just being here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be
or
here.
recognize it. She couldn't care less if anyone recognized it because she recognized it in herself. She's like, I'm the best detective in the world.
That's it.
Carry on.
Yep.
Mary, any final words?
Did you watch the show? I did. My wife and I binged it as fast as we could. So I thought it was great, and I was really interested to see that this particular hour was spent with that as like the mind child behind it. So it was really cool to come in and see this.
Do you think that it resonated for you, the residents and this discussion about it?
It does. I've been trying to kind of like find my own way here at work, and having learning my own confidence actually is really like I'm right in the middle of that. So it was really interesting to see like exactly like you're talking about. She walked to the room, it was natural. She was the smartest person in the room, and she was going to get done what she needed to get done. So
In her own way. I mean, they were
yeah.
all freaking out, and she was like, "Where is she? She's outside taking a break, looking for her birds." So yeah, it was great. Okay, well, thank you everybody for your time and for your attention, and visit girlswhoprint.org to learn more about our upcoming events, our programs, our podcast, our membership program and platform. Until next time, everybody, empower long and prosper.